say
Okay.
that I'm doing this or no?
Yeah. You're John Mirco. You're anytime.
Okay, so whenever you're...
Go ahead.
Thank you all for coming. I'm John Mirco, and I'm doing an informative speech on cystic fibrosis, and I'm going to give you guys a basic understanding of what that means. As you can see, I have my 5 people. We have a cameraman, but he's going to set that down, and I will begin. Alright, cystic fibrosis, which is usually CF for short, is, as some people think, is a lung disease that affects both the lungs and the intestines. But what it really is a genetic disorder that is a recessive...
Keep going.
Is a recessive gene that you get from not just your... I need to start this over.
Yeah, you're all right.
Yeah.
Going.
Okay. It's a recessive gene that you get from both your parents and both your parents, not just one. It's not their faults. It's a recessive gene that is on one of the chromosomes, and I'm missing one of the chromosomes. On a personal note, myself, I have been living with cystic fibrosis all my life. At birth, I was born with it, and diagnosed a few hours after. They realized that I had developed cystic fibrosis, and I was rushed right to the emergency room, and they tried to make sure that I was okay, because I was in critical condition. At the time when I was born, the CF wouldn't allow my bowels to function correctly, and they had to take out my intestines and had to fix the holes in them. And because of that, I have a scar across my stomach here. Like I said, cystic fibrosis is not just a lung disease. It is a genetic disorder, like I said, and it affects the glands in the body. And for example, one of the main glands it affects is called a exocrine gland, which in a normal person's body, it affects their secretions such as saliva, mucus, and other bodily functions that a normal person is on a daily basis is normal to them. But in a person who has cystic fibrosis, the exocrine gland gets messed up, and so it starts producing too much mucus for the body. And so the mucus starts, as I said, it affects the lungs. That's why people think it's a lung disease. But really, it builds up the mucus and blocks the airways. And so after a time, the mucus eventually is just going to block those holes completely, and that person is not going to have air anymore. CF is now becoming a very common genetic disorder. 1 in 3,200 babies, mostly Caucasians, are born with this. Symptoms that lead to cystic fibrosis that affect them are, like I said, it's kind of like, think of asthma basically for the lung part. You're affected, like I said, it blocks your airways, so you're going to have shortness of breath. They say you have sweaty, salty tasting skin. Your energy level's a lot lower because your heart isn't pumping enough blood and oxygen because you're not getting enough air. And it can lead to you're tired all the time. You are more open to diseases because it affects your immune system as well. It lowers that. And so people with CF really have to watch out what they're doing, not just on a daily basis, but in the environment that they're in. because they're, like I said, are more open to normal, like a cough can affect a CF person a lot worse than a normal person, and could lead to other things such as being sent to the hospital to make sure they get better. Like I said, for symptoms like that, there is treatments that can help. Like myself, every day I get up and I do something called aerosols, which are I use a machine and I put medicine into a tube type thing, and it breathes and makes the liquid into an air, like obviously aerosol, and I breathe that in, and it opens up my airways so that the mucus, I can bring it back up and spit that out, so it clears out those. Not only that, people can do exercises every day for at least an hour. They can, just so they can bring up that mucus, and it can make their body stronger, and so they're less immune to those diseases, like I said, because their immune system's already low. Another big part of it is eating correctly, because you have to have a really good nutritional setup in your body to fight off infections. So eating correctly is a very important thing. So skipping out on a meal is not a good idea. You want to have a good 3-meal day and make sure that you're not just eating a bunch of junk. You need protein, you need the right amounts of food. Like I said, for the environment and stuff, it's not just people who are sick. People who have CF cannot spread the disease to other people. It is not a disease that can just go in the airways. But people who have CF can spread it to another person because they are affected in the same way of the low immune system and the mucus. So being around them is not okay, because if one person has a worse effect on their body of CF, like if I were to get a cold or something, I could spread that easily to a CF person than to a person who doesn't have CF. So you really got to watch out and make sure you're around people that don't have it. Now, it doesn't just affect the lungs, it also affects the intestines. But it's a 1 in 2 chance of that happening. For me, it affects both. Others, usually it just affects the lungs, but it affects the intestines, and so your body can't build its own enzymes to break down food. And so every meal, have to take enzymes, which are, like I said, enzymes that break down the food for me to absorb, such as the energy, the carbohydrates and stuff like that. I cannot do that without those pills. And if I do not take those pills, it basically just goes right through me, and it's just like not even eating. There's no point, because I'm not getting what I need from the food, and that's very important. Now, some other parts are affected. 98% of males are born with CF have a chance not that they have. 98% of them cannot have kids. Not just males, and I guess females as well. It affects them in a way that they can't produce sperm, and the women, something happens with their fallopian tubes and they cannot produce a child. And so it is recommended that most people that have CF don't think that you're fertile. They're still at 2%, and they wish that people would go out and make sure that they get tested. So that's another note. Other than that, I have, like I said, I've been with this disease all my life, and I know that many other people have as well. As I said, 1 in 3,200. And so nowadays it's becoming more common, and so people are coming out with new ideas and new ways to make people feel better with this disease. When I was born in 1994, they didn't know much about this disease. They still have been looking into the genetics to see if they can find a cure. but at the moment there is no cure. And I have been struggling through my life. Every day was a struggle in the beginning. I couldn't gain weight. My lung function was always low. Sometimes I would spend 2 to 3 weeks in the hospital because I needed to get the correct amount of meds and treatment that they are willing to provide. Now that I'm older, I'm lucky that I've gotten those treatments because back then some people didn't have that, and they didn't make it. They didn't make it as long. The average person was into their 30s, and now I see people that are in their 70s with this disease. And I'm looking forward into the future to see how far they're willing to go. They say that they have the right gene, they know which one it is, and they're willing to work on trying to figure out how to get it into the body to cure the disease. But for now, there is no cure, and the best thing to do is to hope the best for the future, myself, and for those others that are affected. And that is the basics on what cystic fibrosis really is. So, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Now, what kind of medicine do you take?